Hey everybody, it's Sierra Mari, also known as a Gen Z exec, and today we're having a very special conversation with the icon, the legend, the one, the only, Miss Wendy Day. Do you mind introducing yourself to people who may not know who you are?
I'm happy to. Yeah, my name is Wendy Day. I do a bunch of things in the music industry. I run Rap Coalition, which is a not-for-profit organization that pulls artists out of bad deals.
Fire.
I run Extremely Fire, 32 years in with that, yes. I run Power Moves, which is a for-profit company. We help artists make money with their music. We help them put music into the marketplace and keep their ownership.
Okay.
We build leverage so that if they want to go on and get a deal with a major label, they can. Mm-hmm. But my goal is to keep as many artists independent as possible so that they make 100% of the money. And then I'm also building an incubator. It's not really an incubator, it's really an accelerator, but my world doesn't understand that. So we're building an incubator for artists that have some movement and have some money but need help and funding to get to the next level.
I love
so
that.
Thank you. I'm shopping that right now, trying to get the funding for it. And then when they leave, it's called Artist-Centric. When they leave Artist-Centric, they'll actually leave with 100% ownership of their masters and their publishing, which is unheard of.
I feel like even in the entertech space, which by the way, if you guys don't know what entertech is, it's entertainment and technology. Basically, the creator economy, but just leveraging the internet to your advantage for your artistry and creative endeavors.
Basically today.
Literally.
Because everything in entertainment really is tech.
And we're going to unpack that because I feel like one of the things that I've actually heard from another music executive, Dawida Leonard, which is music has always been technologically advanced. TV and film has always been technologically advanced, but leadership likes to play defense instead of offense with technology, which I thought was a really interesting perspective because we don't really unpack that. But I'm curious, why do you think that is?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that. That's probably better left to people other than me. But I know that like in the music industry, especially in terms of Black artists, we have always been on the cutting edge of technology. Always, always, always. Like this is a little bit before your time, but when pagers first came out, two-way pagers first came out, we were the first. You know, when cell phones went from analog to digital, we were the first. With iPhones and iPads, we were the first. I wrote my book and launched it on my iPad, the first year that there were iPads, right? So yeah, we were always like leading technology, but when we looked at the labels, especially the major labels, they weren't. They were kind of dragging their feet. And I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I think that there's a lot of money that is afforded to major labels because they operate in chaos. And the thing about technology, especially like with the blockchain, is there is no chaos. It's all transparent.
Those who know that record labels act as banks and they act as, you know, an entity or organization that offers these like resources, but yet it's like one of the things that we were talking about earlier, like the new A&R, and I don't know if I've coined this phrase or not, but the new A&R is access and resources, but it's like, what would stop an artist that already has traction to just go to the bank and get a loan?
Nothing. They don't even really have to go to the bank and get a loan anymore. There's companies out here that will cash advance, and I'm not talking about the payday loan type companies that exist. There's some bullshit companies out here. But there's some great company. Beat Bread is a company. It's the first company I've ever believed in enough to be on their board.
Oh, wow.
And I'm on their board,
So
and that's rare. They look at the money that you've got the ability to bring in, and they do one of two things. Either they advance you the money so that you can put it into your project to make more money, or they have like a marketplace where you can go and secure investors. It's sort of like, I don't want to say an eBay for, you know, for artists, but that's kind of what it is, where you can go and you can find investors that are willing to advance you funds for a certain return, a percentage of return.
That's so
and it's really helpful. But the great part is, and this is why I don't like the payday advance companies that exist out here, if for some reason things go horribly wrong and you can't pay it back, you don't lose your publishing, you don't lose your master rights. It's money owed, but it's not, they're not going to stalk you down and make you homeless because you owe them money because your project didn't take off. And that's why I'm against bank loans, and that's why I'm against the advance payday, you know, the oppressive loans out there.
You actually hit on 2 points that I actually want to dive deeper on, because I feel like as someone who obviously comes from an entertainment family but has also kind of carved my way into the tech industry, also like being more in the tech community, they don't really know much about entertainment. Like, they're consumers of it, but they don't really understand like the functionality of it. So it makes me think.
And it's hard to understand. You can't, as an outsider, you can't look inside and say, oh, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Like, there's recouping, there's royalties, there's publishing, there's master rights, there's IP, there's copyrights. It's very confusing.
It is, and that's why I was curious, like, what type of investors are on these platforms, because I know that there's so many.
Yes, and I find that it's people that just love entertainment. Like, there's a lot of my clients and my clients have investors that invest like $250,000 and up, right?
Yeah.
And they're always saying, well, how do I find an investor? Well, you can't just go to somebody that's like flipping real estate and say, hey, invest in me, because it's going to take 1.5 to 2.5 years for the money to start coming back in. It's not a fast flip. And somebody that's used to real estate, where you buy a house cheap, you fix it up, it takes a few months, and then you turn around and sell it, you can make money back in a matter of months. The music industry is not like that. It's more of a slow build, and it's getting slower every day because there's so much of an influx of music. It's complete oversaturation right now. But the investors that I find are people that really respect art and really have just always wanted to be in the music or film or entertainment or creative space somehow. And they're getting that need filled as well as being able to invest in something they believe in.
What are your thoughts on the quality of art and creation in this space now? Because I feel like it's like a mix. I hear mixed too.
I hear people in my generation complaining that the music has become really simplified and it's not about skill level. And I'm talking about rap mostly, that it's not about skill level. I hear people complaining that there's no real R&B anymore. But, and I hear the complaints, but when we've got 100,000 songs being uploaded to Spotify every frigging day, it's really hard for me to accept that. Like, nobody has talent.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's telling me that your curation skills suck, not the artists. Because there's some really great music out here. You just have to find it now. And I think that that's the really great thing about the newer generation is discovery is everything. You know, whereas with my generation, it was rammed down our throats. So we didn't have as many artists and we didn't have as many platforms to experience the music or the streaming videos or TV or film or whatever you want to call it. But now there's so many people that are doing it. Like, I could wake up tomorrow and have a great idea for a mini series and start filming it. And it's affordable and it's easy, and I could upload it to a platform, you know, a week from now and be successful with it, provided I could market it and promote it properly. You know, and in decades ago, there were gatekeepers and you couldn't do that. You had to go through Hollywood. You know, it was really hard to shoot your own miniseries or your own TV show or even make your own album. It was really expensive and it took time, and you had to be in a professional studio. It was just different. Today you can be in your mom's basement or in your bedroom or your garage and make, you know, hit records and like hit shows. Yes.
Growing up, like, which, by the way, if you guys don't know, like, both of my parents are music execs, so that's what I reference a lot when I say growing up. But growing up, you always hear, or I've always heard this, like,
and they're from my generation, just so you know.
And Wendy knows the fam, so but
friends with both.
Literally. But I think it's interesting because growing up, you're always like, oh, like, this is how it works, like, this is how the industry works. So, but then in my peers, we're operating in the space completely
you are
different.
What's happening is you're changing. You guys are the epitome of what hip hop culture is.
Really?
It's like, yes, it's like you're not paying attention to any rules, you're kicking in the door, you're using whatever you can to make what you want to make, and then you're putting it out there. It's like you're violating all the rules. And in a lot of ways it's not good because a lot of copyrights are getting stepped on and a lot of IP is getting stepped on. But for me, I'm from an era where sampling, I started listening to rap in 1980. So that was 1,000,000 years ago. I used to ride my dinosaur. But the point is that it was, we didn't pay attention to rules. Like, we would just sample songs. Oh, I like this song by, Earth, Wind, and Fire, or I like this little piece from a Led Zeppelin song, I'm putting it into my song. And we didn't know about clearance because it just didn't exist in the early days until somebody got sued, and then it changed everything. And that's where we are 30 years later with AI. It's like, as you know, I'm about to help an artist from the 90s recreate one of his hit records using AI. And this is so exciting for me because it's like what we used to do with mixtapes and with songs back in the 80s, where we would just create and then we would go get permission afterwards.
It's kind of like playing with music in a way, would you say?
It's art. It's actually art because we're not constrained. Art shouldn't be constrained. Not that I ever want to violate somebody's ownership or copyrights. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But I want to create, and then I want to find a way to make it work. I want to find a way to get the permission and the clearances to do it. And that's what we're doing.
Well, what would you say to the people who believe that anything created with AI assistance isn't art?
How can you say that? Anytime that I take something from different places and combine it where it's not meant to be is art. You putting this hat with this outfit is art. Me putting my glasses with my nail polish and my shoes, that's art.
Yeah.
You know, everything is art. So it's very hard for me to accept that taking pieces of other people's music, like 4 different songs, and putting them together is an art. And I hear people older than me, the generation above me, that's what they used to say when we sampled, like, you can't play an instrument, that's not artistic. How can you say that? You know, I'm watching people make symphonies out of pieces of music that other people have created. And as long as you get the permission and you're not stomping on anybody else's art, why is that wrong? As a people, humans try to get over.
Facts.
I think that when people see a way to make money illicitly, they're going to do it whether AI exists or not. So I think that if somebody can get over, human nature is they're going to try. So it's not like, it is unfortunate, but it's not like, and it's been through time. It's not a new 2024 problem. But it's going to exist. So do we change the thinking of people, or do we put rules in place to stop people that wouldn't take advantage? I don't know the answer to that.
I had so many conversations with friends of mine that worked at TikTok, that are managers, that work at these companies, that were like, I don't know how long it's going to take for the culture to embrace this type of technology. One, because I don't
think we need to catch up.
That, but I also think they just didn't see themselves until, honestly, BBL Drizzy. I'm not even going to hold you. I really think that because it was...
You think that changed everything?
I think it did. I think it did.
I love that.
One, having a global challenge of people remixing that record. You got people from Japan, Mexico, Brazil, everyone remixing it. But then also, no one gave a fuck that it was AI. No one cared.
No, and they just cared that it was a great song.
And as someone who's been in like the music tech space now for about like 2 years, like really like locked in, and have people saying that I'm like a spawn of the devil because I'm like want creators to use AI, and then now all of a sudden like everyone's like, nah, like this is a hit, like this is fire. Like it's like, no, like that changes everything, because I think it met people where they were at. It wasn't this like dystopian future, and I think that that's something that I also had to realize about entertech as well. Like I think when I first coined the term back in 2022, it was just a term that I was using to describe a lot of the patterns I was seeing between creativity and technology, but I was speaking about it from like, oh, this is 5-10 years down the line. And then I think now it's like, no, this is very much present day.
It's today,
It's today. That's interesting. And you know, that's something that a lot of people have also asked me a lot of, like, do you think record labels will sustain? So I posed that question to you.
I do. I think right now they're banks. I think that they have, especially with the layoffs that happened this spring in 2024, that their staffs are reduced. But I think that they have people that can do this properly, that work for the company, that have the experience, and some still have the passion and the motivation to do this. But most of all, record labels are banks. They can afford to do this properly, where most artists can't. You know, it takes a lot of money to break an artist.
And I think that's something that my perception of like record labels in this new space has kind of changed a lot, because I agree they have the money and like the power to do a lot of the things that they do. And I'm not anti-label either. I think I'm more so about like ethical and efficient leadership in these positions.
Same.
And I think
it comes from the top down.
Absolutely, hands down. But then I also have to pose the question too of like, with artists empowering themselves with technology as well, they can get a freelance. There's also a lot of creative platform directories and like getting a freelance marketer that just got fired from a Capital or just got fired like
from wherever.
And let's say they go to, you know, like was it Beat Bread? Or,
yes.
You know, and they go and find an investor. What would be, I'm hypothetically asking question labels, please don't come for me. What would be the purpose of a record label for an artist if they're already self-sustaining through technology?
There is none, because if you're able to fill every need that you have independently, you wouldn't need a major label.
And so you think that is like the way for artists moving forward, or creators in general?
I think it's been the way moving forward since the 90s, but I might be a little foresightful in this.
Why do you say that?
Because I've just always seen how unfair the current system is. It's very draconian. The contracts are just very outdated.
Yeah.
And they've always been outdated. And there's a financial reason for them to be outdated. And, you know, to defend the major labels, most of them are publicly traded corporations. So they're in business to make sure that their stockholders make money. That's really why they exist. So I'm not blaming them for focusing on making as much money as they can, but there has to be a more equitable split between the creatives that are delivering the art. You know, I used to make this analogy when I first started, and here I am 32 years later making the same analogy. If I'm an artist and I make music, I can go sell my music on the street corner. But if I'm a record label, I can't make the art. So that tells me where the power is. The power is in the artist, because they can still act as the record label for themselves, right?
Absolutely.
So if the artists have the power, how come throughout time we've acted like they don't? They have the leverage. They just don't know it.
I think it's a mentality thing. Absolutely. I think they don't know it. And I think I was talking to a marketer a few weeks ago, and he said, you know, do you know who created the concept of a pop star? And he was like, record labels. He was like, when you think about a pop star and having this major support and having the PR and having all these things, it's this concept that you need a record label to make you a star.
Right.
When in reality, you know, it depends on the view and perception of success for that artist, because some artists may not want to be a pop star. They may be like, look, I just want to pay my rent with my work.
My family.
Exactly. And I think that is really where we are now, of like a mental shift of like, what does success really mean for you as an artist, as an executive, as a manager? Like, what does that really look like? Because some of them may be like, nah, like I want to be the biggest star in the world, and if I need a record label to do that,
then I'll do it.
And exactly, and that's fine. But a lot of them, because they can barely pay their rent, they can barely afford groceries, especially in this fucking economy, it's absolutely crazy. A lot of them are like, nah, like I want to own 100%. Like they may not know, but they're opening up to what that actually looks like, and realistically, what does it actually take for them to do it?
Mental health matters more than I've ever seen it in 32 years. And I'm so thankful, because mental health is important. Like in the 90s, people treated artists almost like slaves or workhorses, you know, and they didn't care that they were tired. It's like, get back out on tour. You can't cancel the tour. You have to keep going at all costs. And we don't care that your mom just died. We don't care that your dog just died. We don't care what you're going through. So what if your husband left you, or, you know, whatever the person's going through. And today we care more about that.
Isn't it interesting how the industry has always treated creatives like slaves and like robots, yet now that we have robots to assist us, now
it's a problem.
Now we can't, you know, and I think it is that like instant change also because it's moving so quickly. It's like, I think humans in general are kind of resistant to change because it requires adjustment.
And our brains are wired to not like change. That's why it's so hard for us to drop weight or start working out or stop smoking or change a habit. Our brains don't want change.
I think it's such an interesting thing, though, just about humanity, because we are like that, but yet it's human nature to constantly evolve. And I think that's such an interesting, like,
dichotomy.
And literally, because it's like, that's a part of our human nature, though.
I've never been scared of change, but Sierra, I'm also comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that's one of the secrets to my success, is that, you know, I grew up Christian in a Jewish neighborhood, grew up poor in a wealthy neighborhood. I work in black music as a white person. It's a male-dominated industry. I'm female. So I've learned to get really comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's what the definition of a disruptor is. We're very comfortable with change, and we want to find new and better ways. And I'm doing it for my clients constantly. Like, let me find a better way to run digital ads. Let me find a better way to do influencer marketing. Let me find a better way for social media.
Yeah.
We're always looking for better.
Yeah.
You know? And to me, that just makes sense. It's how it should be.
It should be. And, you know, I think I was talking to one of my friends literally yesterday because she was like, well, do you have any platforms for me to discover and things like that? And I was like, that's why I made the advice video of like, just allow your discovery to lead you to find these new ways to being uncomfortable, because I think people need to know that ways to navigate this discomfort exist and platforms do exist. And I will let y'all know that the tech space wants to come in entertainment really, really bad. Like
it's here.
It's here. Now I think the tech industry are realizing like, oh, like this is not a quick
fix.
It's not. And it's like, it really requires these types of conversations. And that's why I was so excited that you were like, yes, of course I'll do it. Because I don't think intergenerational conversations happen like that. I don't think and why is that?
I don't know. I blame everybody. I blame my generation for not reaching back to the newer people and helping them.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people in my generation just wanted to profit off of new people, almost like they were jealous of their youth. But when we got into this, Sierra, I got into this at 30 years old and I was old. My peers were all 21, 22. So why wouldn't we embrace the new generation of 20, 21, 22-year-olds? Like, why not? It just makes sense to me. And for my generation to be holding on so tight when the fan base is 13 to 26 and we're way past understanding the generation that are fans of music, why wouldn't we embrace people that are part of that community the way that we were back 30 years ago, you know? So I can't answer that. I think also the youngest generation are doing what my generation did. We just ignored the old fogies and said, fuck them, we're just gonna do it ourselves. You know, when I started in the industry, a lot of my friends were making friends with Clarence Avon and the guys that were at the top in the music industry. And I didn't. My attitude was, fuck them. They think hip hop is a fad. Fuck them. They don't get it. Fuck them. So I understand where this generation's coming from. And because of that, you know, my whole staff is 25 and under. My whole staff, because it's not my market anymore. And I need to understand it to be effective. So I need to turn to people like yourself to say, okay, what's new and what's coming, educate me. But I also care and I want to learn. And I think that's the difference. And I don't want to keep it the way it's always been. Like, let the new generation come in and make the changes, and we can all profit from those changes, and we can help them. Instead of pimping them out, let's help them. We learned from people taking advantage of us how much it sucks. So why would we ever turn around and do it to somebody else? I know I certainly don't. And there's enough for everybody.
Literally. Why be the pawn when you could be like the product yourself?
Exactly.
This is a lot more complicated and a lot more political than what I thought.
And it's old school.
Still,
it's draconian.
When people ask me like, oh, well, is entertech an industry? Is it economy? Thank you. And I'm going to pick your brain on that because I always have said when people have asked me, is it an industry? I've always said, well, I see it more as like an ecosystem. Like I see more of like creative sovereignty, more independent artistry, and people having their own like branded ecosystems coexisting together instead of having like a top down. I feel like industrial things is like very top down to me.
Agreed.
Where ecosystem is more like level playing field.
I love the ecosystem example that you just gave. I think that's brilliant. For me, it's also a movement because what it's doing is it's building a community of like-minded people. And the thing about being entrepreneurs in entertainment and tech together is that most people that, and certainly not all, I'm not saying all of anything, right? But most people that own their own companies, we put on blinders and we focus just on what's in front of us. We don't really interact with our peers very much, especially in the tech world where it's a little bit more introverted, if you will, right? And again, not all. I'm certainly not saying everybody is.
I can definitely see that.
But it's definitely a world where introversion exists. I've been making up words. Where that exists, right? And the great thing about entertech is it gives a platform, a space, a community where people can come together and talk about what they're working on, because you might talk about something that you're doing that that gives me an idea about something I'm working on that's completely different, but I can apply what your experience is to part of what I'm doing, and it's like, now I can be even better. I had read a book about Lucille Ball, and she talked about how she owned her own studio, and she and Desi Lou Productions, she and her husband Desi filmed all of their TV shows, and then they went to the bigger network and sold them, but they owned their masters, right? And because I read this biography on Lucille Ball, when Master P was negotiating his deal at Priority, I immediately saw the similarity. Even though he's nothing like Lucille Ball, I saw that he was recording and delivering masters the way that she did, and I'm like, you should own those. Yeah. And it was me learning from another industry and another story. And if I had never read that book, I would have never thought to ask for that. And if you look at my history of doing, you know, helping Eminem and helping Cash Money and helping David Banner and all these other people build their careers and own masters, they wouldn't exist had I not read that friggin' book. So I see your movement or your ecosystem as a space where people can congregate and have discussions and conversations that might trigger something in somebody else, saying, oh, I see what they're doing in that space. Maybe it's content, but I can use that with recording music. Or I see what somebody's doing in making a streaming series, but I can apply that to my content or whatever. But I see it as a community more than anything, which is why I call it a movement.
I love that. I just think that people should just see examples so they can think different and then do different. And I think that is really where change happens. And that's why I always tell people, like, entertech is my word, but it's really not. Like, it's not for me. Like, it's really just to describe this movement really that I've been noticing for such a long time. And if there's brilliant. Thank you. You're brilliant. And what would you say to artists, just to close out, what would you say to artists right now that either want to take their craft more serious or just don't know where to start?
I would say learn as much as you can. And it's funny because for 32 years, this has been the answer to this question, even though as much as the world has changed. You have to have a thirst for knowledge, and you have to always be growing and changing and at least learning, even if you choose not to do something. Like, even if you don't want to make music with AI, that's fine. But learn about it, learn how it works, learn what you can do and what you can't do, learn how the music industry works, learn how the world works, learn how you work. It's amazing how many people don't have knowledge of self, and they don't even know what they're willing to do and not willing to do. And this is an industry, life is an industry where if you're not willing to put in the work, you're not going to succeed. You're just always going to be floating and struggling.
Guys, before we even end this video and end out this interview, I do want to say thank you for tuning in and getting to this point. I actually have some exciting news if you're interested. If you are interested in reading a book or learning more about entertech, I actually have some news. I'm dropping Everything You Need to Know About Entertech Volume 1 in a week. So I'm very excited, and I think y'all are gonna be excited too. I don't wanna spoil too much, but what I will say is that if you use it correctly, you're gonna be 10 steps ahead. So I would suggest, if I was you, I would tap it now. But seriously, thank you so much. Hopefully y'all see me soon. And if you guys wanna follow me or ask me any questions that you have, hit me on Instagram and or TikTok before it's banned at Gen Z Exec. And that's it. See you soon. Bye.
Good.